lesson 5, already 5 weeks in, and this was supposed to be a study on Satan, and we're just now getting to Satan. So, um, but we kind of had to lay a lot of groundwork. I thought that was important. And I don't know how many of y'all have bought the book. I know a few of you have and are reading it. It's a lot, isn't it? There's a lot there, and he digs into the language probably a little more than what most of us are used to or comfortable with. And we're going to talk about that this morning, particularly the word Satan, just to kind of get us back on track. Last week we talked about God's use of these spirits to do some of His work, and some of that work is bad things happening to people. Okay, we specifically talked about the destroyer or the destroying angel used in the Exodus story, the Passover story in particular. And sometimes God does that directly. Sometimes He uses these angels in His service to do that work. Sometimes He uses humans. He even used the Israelites to do some of that work. So he can. The context is always, though, that we have to remember when these things happen, it's always in terms of His righteous judgment. Either He's bringing judgment upon these pagan gods. We talked about the plague story, or He's bringing judgment on pagan people that are worshiping these gods, or He's bringing punishment on His own people. And we have that time and time again, that He's bringing these things, bad things happening to the Israelites themselves. This week, I kind of want to give you a little warning. We talked about that scriptural puzzle that we've put together throughout our life. And the essential stuff, the salvation, those parts are easy. Big parts to fit together nicely. I think we've all settled on that. We don't have to move any of those around. But there's other pieces of the scriptural puzzle as we encounter them that we don't always know how to handle. And sometimes we just set them aside and don't deal with them. Sometimes we may try to squeeze them in where perhaps they won't fit. This morning, you're going to have to re-examine part of your picture on some things and see if those pieces are fitting where you think they were. This is going to be a challenging lesson in terms of some of the things we're going to talk about. And that's okay. It's okay. I'm going to push your comfort level a little bit here, okay? Now I've got you all on the edge of your seats. What are we going to talk about? But I just want to give you a little warning on that. So, okay. We don't know Satan's name. The term Satan in the Hebrew that's used is not a proper name, not in the original language, okay? Now, we've made it a proper name in our modern times, and in the English versions of your Bible, it treats them as modern names, but in the original Hebrew, and that's what we're going to focus on this morning, is the Old Testament. We'll talk about the New Testament next week. It's not a proper name. It's a description. Closely meaning adversary or accuser or even enemy at times. That's what it literally means, okay? And a lot of times in our Bibles where it just says Satan, capital S, it's got a "the" article attached to it in the Hebrew. And so it's the Satan, or in other words, the accuser or the adversary, okay? And so when the English translators, they're trying to help us out, okay? But some things can get misconstrued there, so we have to be careful of that. So Satan is not his actual name. We don't know his name. This prince of darkness that we talked about, God's arch enemy. If it's not Satan, then it must be Lucifer, of course. We all know that's the other name for Satan, but Lucifer only occurs one time in the Bible. Isaiah 14:12, and in most of your modern translations, you won't find it there. It is in the King James Version. Lucifer came about as a mistranslation early on, okay? In the modern translations, that have better resources to draw upon, they don't use the word Lucifer there. So Lucifer, in most of your Bibles, is not there. So that's not Satan's name either. Okay, we we kind of associate that with it. We've accepted it as that, but it's not scriptural. Okay, it's not coming from Scripture there. When the Hebrew word is translated from the Hebrew to the Greek, it's a transliteration. It comes across as Satanas. So basically, keeping the same word. They didn't have another Greek word for it. And when it's not translated that way, it's translated Diablos, or devil. Okay, and we know the devil is not a name either. We always attach "the" to devil, the devil. So we're familiar with that. So just wanted to put that out there, that when you hear the word Satan, we think of an individual with that name. That's not really what it means. Okay, it's not a proper name. It's more of a title or a description. Okay. Questions on any of that? Beelzebub is not either. Okay, it occurs in some other writings, but that's not his name. In fact, Beelzebub is often associated with one of the demons, and not Satan himself, is my understanding. But let's see. Any other questions, comments on that? Yes, sir. Satan. It's more, we use it as a proper name, and we're going to use it as a proper name going forward in this class. I just wanted y'all to understand that it's not a proper name in the Bible. It's used as more of a title or a description of of this whoever it's talking about. Okay, we're going to look at several examples here that'll make that a little bit clearer, I think. The other part of this is Satan is very much a New Testament Christian. I don't want to say concept, it's not a concept, but Satan does not appear in the Old Testament very much, okay? Or Jewish writings. He's never mentioned by Josephus or Philo or a lot of in the other Jewish writings that we have that are not scriptural, but give us insight into how they thought. It's very rare that Satan is mentioned there, okay? That word comes up. But of course, when we get to the New Testament, Satan's everywhere. Okay, there's a lot of discussion in the New Testament about him, and we'll talk about that some more next week. But primarily, it's a Christian topic, not so much for the Jews. They didn't talk about this individual that we call Satan. Okay. The Hebrew noun Satan appears 27 times in the Old Testament. Okay? We're going to run through those real quick, some of them real quick. It refers to a human 7 times. Okay? Here's some examples. I didn't put these up here because so many of them. I didn't want to spend a lot of time here. But like in 1 Samuel 29:4, if you'll turn over there in your Bibles, if you've got a modern translation, ESV, RSV, any of that, it's going to have the word adversary there. It's not going to have the word Satan. Okay? Somebody check on that for me, make sure I'm not misleading you. But so the translators they know that in the context of the verse that it's referring to a human, even though in the Hebrew it uses the word Satan. Okay, they've substituted, instead of Satan, they've put in adversary. Okay, or maybe accuser or something along those lines. Okay, everybody with me? And so each of those examples there, those 7 times, we know definitely it was talking about a human being. And so they just went ahead and gave it another name besides Satan. Okay. 2 times it's talking about a angelic adversary. This is a good angel, okay, for lack of a better description. And both times it's in the story of Balaam. Numbers 22:2. I did pull this one. 22:22. God's anger was kindled because he went and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as his Satan. Okay, you remember the story? There's an angel from the Lord standing in the way so the donkey can't continue walking. Okay, the word used there is Satan. All right? Everybody with me on that? And it's just, he was an obstacle. He was an adversary opposing Balaam and the donkey, not letting them move forward. And it's mentioned 2 times in that same story. Right, this is the Hebrew word for adversary. And so sometimes when a human is the adversary, it would use that word Satan. Okay? At other times, in this case, in Balaam's story, it was an angelic, it was a good angel from the Lord, an angel of the Lord, I think it even says there, but he was opposing Balaam, so he was standing as a Satan in his way. Okay? Yeah, Barbara? Satan, the prince of darkness, can he? Yeah, I think he can take different forms. Yeah. But in the context of these verses that we've covered so far, it's clearly it's a human being or it's a good angel. The story itself tells us that. And so our modern translations, instead of using the word Satan, they use a different word, adversary or something like that, that will better describes it for us. Okay, which is helpful, which is good until it's not. Okay, and sometimes it misleads us a little bit. We're going to talk about maybe it's done that a few times. There's one that's unclear. 1 Chronicles 21:1. Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to number Israel. Okay. This one we don't know. It's talking about, it uses the word Satan there in most of your translations. Okay. With a capital S. Talking about the dark prince. Okay. I can't come up with a better description of him than that without using the word Satan. Okay, Satan's proper name, talking about the evil one. But it's not clear from the context that that's really Satan. You can go over to the parallel passage in 2 Samuel, okay? This is talking about the same event. It says, again, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, go and number Israel. So here, it's saying that God incited this to happen so that David would go and do this census. All right? And so is it God using Satan? Or is it God is Satan just an enemy of David, whoever he's fixing to come up against? Is that what prompted him to go and do a census? That kind of makes more sense to me. He's going to come up against this other opposing force, and he wants to know what his force is. Okay? So in this case, where the translators have put a capital S and called it and used the proper name Satan there, we don't know if it's really Satan or if it was another a human adversary, because God is saying here in 2 Samuel says that God done this. So it's a little unclear on this one instance there. So that leaves us with 17 remaining times it's used in the Old Testament, and those occur in 2 books. In Job, it's used 14 times, and 3 times in Zechariah, and that's where we're going to spend the rest of our time this morning probably on those. Before we go into any questions, I hope I'm not confusing you there. I just wanted to give you some examples of the word Satan in Hebrew is not always used in the way we use it today, talking about one evil person or one evil spirit out there, okay? One evil angel. It's used in their language as more common referral to enemy, okay? Zechariah. Oh, yeah, also in these last 17 occurrences, the article "the" is always attached to it. It's the Satan, okay? And that'll become more important as we move ahead here. But just keep that in mind. Not Satan as a proper name. Okay, Zechariah, and I hope y'all can read that. Tried to make it as big as I could and get it all on there. But let's read through this. Then he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And the Lord said to Satan, the Lord rebuke you, O Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked from the fire? Now Joshua was standing before the angel, clothed with filthy garments. And the angel said to those who were standing before him, remove the filthy garments from him. And to him he said, behold, I have taken your iniquity away from you, and I will clothe you with pure vestments. And I said, let them put a clean turban on his head. And so they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord was standing by. Okay, so the context here is God's got plans for Joshua, and he needs Joshua to step up and be a part of this. These plans for him. Excuse me. So what is Satan doing here? Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. Okay? And so this word Satan there is capitalized. The translators have put in a proper name here for this individual, and he's standing next to the angel of the Lord, standing at the right hand of God. Okay, you get in the picture? Kind of back to our discussion about the divine council. There's a meeting going on here. And Joshua appears, and immediately the Lord rebukes Satan. Okay? So what's he rebuking him of? What's Satan fixing to do you think? Okay, well, yeah, I mean, so he's gonna start accusing Joshua of something, right? It's what it implies, right? It's what he says. He says, I'm standing ready to accuse him. So what's he going to accuse him of? Well, what kind of state is Joshua in? He's unclean. He's dirty. Okay? He's defiled. These dirty garments that it talks about, this is soiled garments. This is the worst kind of garment. Excrement. Okay? More than you want to know. That's what it's talking about here. He is in no shape to come before the Lord. And so Satan's going to accuse him of that, of being defiled and unclean. Okay? But the Lord steps in and rebukes him. The Lord rebuke you, O Satan. And he rebukes him really harshly, doesn't he? I mean, this is pretty stern language. It's almost, you're thinking maybe Satan here is going to attack him. He's fixing to assault him in some way. And the Lord stops him. And he uses this phrase, is not this a brand plucked from the fire? We've pulled Joshua into this situation from an unclean world, okay? He's standing before us, and I want him here. And does the Lord refute what Satan is accusing him of? No. Satan's not lying here. He's not deceiving. He's not tempting. He's standing in the Lord's presence, keeping something unclean coming into the Lord's presence here. Maybe even looking to it physically attacking, or spiritually, how you want to say it. Okay? And the Lord fixes it. I've got plans for him, Satan. You wait a minute. Let me clean him up. And that's what he does. The rest of the verse is they put new robes on him, new turban on him, make him pure and able to serve. So what's going on here? What's issues that this verse gives us? Is there anything that gives you a problem with this? Owen? Okay. Okay. So Satan is Satan working against God or for God? Is he? Think he's trying to get brownie points? It looks to me like he's trying to keep Joshua from coming in and defiling the presence of the Lord. Right? Well, there's no doubt that Joshua is unworthy to be there. He's unclean. He is defiled. That's not dispute, right? He did. But what does he do before he uses him? What does he do before he uses him? He cleans him up, right? Sure. Yeah. 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 No, you're right in that part of it. And he's going to use him, but before he uses him, he's got to do what? He's going to purify him. And all Satan is doing is this insinuates that all Satan is doing is I think he's playing a role here in God's service and keeping unclean things away from God. Okay. I see it more as well, and I'm playing devil's advocate literally here. Okay. Think of this in terms of a courtroom. You've got a prosecuting attorney, and you've got an defending attorney, and you've got a judge. Okay. Here we're familiar with that scene. We watch it on TV, right? Maybe you've even been part of it personally. Hopefully not too many times. Is there any bad guys, assuming all pure motives, are there any bad guys in those three? They each got a job, right, to do. The prosecutor's trying to say, this guy's guilty. He's done things he needs to be convicted of. He needs to answer for. He's not what we think he is. He brings accusations, right? You've got a defending attorney that says, now, wait a minute, there's other circumstances involved here. It's not what it appears to be. All those facts are not true that this prosecuting attorney is bringing, and the judge is there to kind of parse and get to the truth between the things they're saying. And they all have pure motives, assuming there's no bad guys in that scenario. Is that what's happening here? Maybe? Yeah. Is Satan, is this person we're calling Satan here, is he lying? No. Is he deceiving in any way? No. Okay.
The only thing he's done, he's forgotten the power of God. I mean, yes, this man was unclean, just like we're unclean, we're full of sin.
Yeah.
But he forgot, and he's presenting this to God and saying he's unclean, he's not worthy, cast him out.
So he's working in God's service.
But he forgot the power that God has to cleanse this man.
Did he have to be clean?
Yes.
Okay. And who pointed that out?
Well,
Satan did.
But he does that to us all the time too. And he's always trying to make us,
Okay.
You're not worthy, you're not worthy, you're not worthy, you're dirty. But he forgets the power of God.
Okay. And it was within God's power here to make him pure. And actually this goes on. This is a messianic prophecy that goes on through here. Okay. So, any other comments? Yeah, Owen? I'm questioning, is this Satan? Just because your English translation says Satan doesn't mean it's the Satan that we think about. Because if it is, he's out of character. He's not deceiving. He's not lying. He's there doing a service in God's service. He's standing. Answer me this. How's he standing in God's presence and Joshua's not able to stand in God's presence? Joshua's defiled. He can't stand there, but Satan can? That doesn't make sense. There's a problem there. Theologically.
Like you said before, that Satan is a person standing there. I read that it could be the idea that Joshua is unclean.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? The adversary
That's what it's been represented by the word Satan there? Okay.
that idea, I can see both ways.
Yeah. Are you beginning to see what I'm saying, though? I hope I'm communicating that well. To me, there's a problem here if Satan's worthy to stand in God's presence and Joshua's not. If that's true, then this entity that we're calling Satan with a capital S may not need the capital S. He's just being an adversary in this courtroom, the prosecution, saying, this guy's not worthy, Lord, you better look at him. And the Lord's saying, I know what he is. He's a brand plucked out of the fire. He's dirty. I understand that. I'm going to clean him up and use him. Okay? But Satan is doing his job here and pointing out the unworthiness of Joshua. That's what it looks like to me. Yes.
If you read that, and he showed you Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord and the adversary standing at his right hand to accuse him. And then the Lord said to the adversary, it kind of makes you see it more the way you're saying, I think.
Yeah. I think you can read it that way. And now, the other thing I have to put out there is this is a vision that's being given. Maybe it's not based in scriptural reality, okay, in terms that this is given to Zechariah to send a message, okay, to the people and to Joshua. And so there is that possibility too, all right? We have to take that into account, all right? So with that said, let's move on. Unless anybody else got any. Are you beginning to see what I hope I'm just explaining it well enough that you can understand my point? Yeah, Barbara? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm not trying to minimize any of the attacks by Satan in any way. And that may be the case here. Okay. I'm just wanting to open your mind to the possibility there may be some places in Scripture where this word Satan is used, and it's not talking about the dark prince of evil necessarily. Okay. Because here there's some issues. If we're going to take this as truth, this scene here, that it gives us some issues that we have to answer for. Yeah, Steve? Yeah. Yeah. In that instance, who's he calling Satan? He's saying he's your adversary. Yeah. Let's move on to Job. Again, the print gets smaller, and I want to read both instances. Satan shows up just in the first chapter and the second chapter. Okay? This is Job, chapter 1, verses 6 through 12. And we're going to read chapter 1 and chapter 2 here all together. They're very similar. Now there was a day. Oh, the other thing. Your version is going to say Satan, capital S, no the. Okay, just to make my point, I'm putting back in the "the." The translators have removed where it says "the Satan." Yours is going to say just Satan in a lot of places. The "the" is in the original writings. Okay, and so I put that in here just to illustrate. It changes the tone a little bit. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and the Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" The Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to the Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil?" Then the Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and in his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands and his possessions. You have increased you've increased in the land, but stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to the Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Also against him do not stretch out your hand." So that Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And again, there was a day when the sons. Okay, this is chapter 2. I took out the first two verses, but I'm going to read them to you, and then on the display, it's got starting with verse 3. Again, there was a day before the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and the Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to the Satan, "From where have you come?" And the Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to the Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason." Then the Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. All that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and flesh, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to the Satan, "Behold, he is in your hand. Only spare his life." So the Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with the loathsome sores from the sole of his feet to the crown of his head. Okay. So let's assume, just for a moment, that this is not Satan, capital S, Prince of Darkness. Let's assume for a moment this is an angelic being working as a prosecutor, bringing charges against people before the Lord. Okay? Just for the fun of it, let's do that. Can you read it that way? Can you see that? Again, the Satan here, whatever he is acting as a prosecuting attorney, wandering to and fro on the earth, looking for people doing bad things. Okay? This answers a few questions that always arise when we talk about Job. Okay? Why is Satan in heaven? Now, back up, Zechariah was a vision, okay? And I'm fine with saying, this is a vision given with a purpose, and maybe it's not based strictly in spiritual reality of what heaven is. What is this story? Is Job a real person? Absolutely, he's a real person. He's mentioned in other places of the Bible, so I have to assume that this is the truth, okay? Not that I ever not assumed that, but we're given a more clear picture. This is not a vision given to a prophet necessarily. This is a story being told for truth. So why is Satan in heaven? It always comes up. If it's the Prince of Darkness. Is he in God's service? Or is he working against God here? I think his spirit. We're talking about spiritual beings here. So, and why does God bring up Job? Why does he bring up Job? Randy's teaching this class on Sunday night. wonderful class. His focus has been on Job. He's going to be on Job. He hasn't even got to chapter 2 yet. He'll probably go there tonight. So he's not going to, I don't think he's going to spend a lot of time talking about this the way we are. So, but we're focused on this entity called Satan here. Why does God, to use Randy words, throw him under the bus? Steve? Okay. To Job. Okay.
That's just a thought.
Yeah. Well, and God puts him out there. He said, "Consider my servant Job. He's holy. He's a good person. He's a righteous person." Right? That's what he's saying. And Satan said, "Well, of course he is. You're protecting him. Okay. Remove all that from him, and he'll be just like everybody else on earth."
Well, it's almost like you started out a couple of weeks ago about this council. I don't know that they're even in heaven. I mean, they're may be at this council meeting, and they're just kind of.
Well, that's where.
Have you checked out my servant Joe?
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm. After you brought out some stuff, I'm kind of.
I think that's the
circling
scene
in
here.
my head.
I think this is divine. It says all the sons of God have gathered there, and
Right.
Satan, this
You just tagged along, went in with.
he came right along with them. He's standing there in the presence of God, conversing with God, and they're talking about Job. And Satan, the adversary here, he brings up this challenge, and God must think it's a legitimate challenge because what? He accepts it, right? He said, "Okay, that's fair. Let's put him to the test." And then look here. Who's it say is responsible for this?
God also knows Job. In his heart.
Do what? Sorry.
God knows Job.
God knows Job, and he's not afraid to let him be tested, is he? And that's the point of the story. But here, who's it say has started this?
He tells God, he says, stretch out your hand. And touch his common flesh will curse you.
Okay. And even before,
He's telling God to do it.
yes, and even before that, what does he say? Have you considered my servant Job? There's none like him on earth. And he stands, let's see, where is it? Lost my place.
Although you incited me.
Yes, you incited me against him. And after chapter 2, Satan does not appear again, and all the things that happened to Job are credited to God. And God takes the credit for it in his explanation to us. We all what?
I wish we knew what was going on before this.
Yeah, we're not giving the whole picture here.
And God makes this statement in order to prove that he gives man the choice, either serve him or to serve him.
Yeah, and the book is about Job staying faithful to God. And basically, what's being proven here is that there are people, no matter what happens to them in their life, that love God for who God is. That's the whole point of the story. And that's what is being tested here. And this Satan plays a role in that. He's going out and finding these individuals that they're not what you think they are, God. Or maybe, to Clark's point, the whole council is thinking this about Job. I don't know. Maybe they're jealous of him being favored by God the way he is and needs to be tested and proved before this council. The other heavenly beings may be involved. I don't know. But there's a lot of problems if we think this is the Satan in terms of some of the theology involved with Satan being in the presence of God.
I've always been taught that Satan was a fallen angel. He had been God's creation.
Yes.
Before he fell, he would have come to this council. So why? Because it says the sons of God came, and Satan also So would he not, since he had been a son of God, even though he's not a good son, he may still have been allowed in God's presence.
Okay, that's fair. We don't have the understanding of that realm to fully answer all those questions. I fully get that, okay? And I'm not doubting the existence of Satan in any way. What I'm saying is, I don't know that the Satan is in this story, okay? And I'm really just wanting you to open up your eyes to read more critically, that when we're given translation here, it's not always as clear as what the translators go from translating to interpreting, and sometimes they get it wrong. And sometimes we draw bad conclusions from that, okay? The author says himself, he does not believe Satan appears in the Old Testament. Think about that. I'm not ready to go there yet. But he doesn't think this is the Satan. Yes, sir.
If he wasn't the Satan, where'd he get the power to put those sores on him?
It wasn't, he says God does. God put the sores on him. And God took the credit for it going forward when he's having the conversations with Job later in the book. And so the prosecuting attorney has brought the charges, and the judge has accepted, okay, let's test it and see, and lets him do these things.
The verse 7 says, to me, reads that Satan did it. And if you read it, that's how I've seen it.
So Satan went out from the presence of, okay, you're right on that.
I don't know. I have a hard time believing God to do that to Job. God does what he
Well,
wants.
before that though, what does it say? He incited me against him to destroy him without reason. That's talking about God.
I think God allowed Satan to do it, but that's why I read it.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it. That's why I read it.
Well, how about the inciting me?
Combination.
Yeah. I mean, in essence, God allows everything to happen. He can stop any of it, right? And he can use Satan however he wants to use him. And to be fair, I'm not saying this is not Satan, capital S. I'm just wanting you to think about it.
It's maybe
Okay.
not a fully developed Satan yet.
Huh?
Maybe not a fully developed Satan yet. Could
Yeah.
be difference between Old Testament as the accuser and then moves more. He's not so independent of God's will at this point, or trying to be. And then as he moves forward
That's-
into the adversary role, he's more inherently evil and not under God.
Yeah.
God's control. He tries to be more.
And we know his role is limited, you know, and it has changed, should be a better way of saying that, throughout the Bible. But I guess the main point is, the person that we thought of Satan is not that present in the Old Testament, okay? And even the ones that we think are definitely him, that we're told definitely him with a capital S, you need to look at it and rethink it a little bit. That might not be the case, okay? Steve.
How did the Jews look, I mean, the serpent in Genesis?
Okay, we will talk about that. Go back and read Genesis. It never says Satan. It says the serpent. It never says the devil was there. It says the serpent. Now we've read that back into it, and that may be it. Okay, I'm not saying it's not, but you know, we just thought, man, we've taught that from the time we're this big, that's the devil tempting Eve, but it doesn't say that. It says the snake. And then when you look at the curse, okay, we've read into that we've read that through Christian lenses, and everything there looks like it's talking about Christ and him striking his heel and him striking his head, but it could just be snakes being cursed.
We'll get into it when we talk about it, but it does tell us in the New Testament that Satan deceived Eve. So we do have that reference.
Yeah.
You'll get into that.
Yeah. And next week we'll talk about, we're going to look at the New Testament, and it's a whole different world in the New Testament. Satan is throughout it, okay? And in no way am I diminishing who he is. I'm just saying maybe he's not in every place that we think he is, okay? Is that fair? Everybody, you okay with that? check your pieces of your puzzle and see if they're fitting where you thought they should fit, you know. And it's good to question those at times. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is there any reason that we know for sure that evil and good couldn't have existed in heaven? The heaven we're going to is not that one. Christ is going to prepare ours.
Okay.
And there will only be good there.
Well,
Now, at that time, I don't know anywhere where it
That's a
describes that there can't be evil.
that's a great question. We have this concept that God can't be in the presence of evil. And we're taught that basically from the institution of the tabernacle. You know, you have to be cleansed before you can enter his presence. Right? That's the whole point of the tabernacle and the temple. Nothing unholy can come into there. He tells Moses, take off your shoes, you're on holy ground. Well, Satan can stand there, but Moses can't. There's problems with that, you know, and maybe it's just the storytelling here. This is poetry in Job. Okay, so we got to allow for that too in the translation. So that's all out there, and you got to wrestle with it. And I'm just saying it's not always plain as we want it to be sometimes. Okay? All right, thank you. We're way past time here.